Well, hello, world. Welcome to Something to Talk About, another edition. We took a little bit of a hiatus last week, but we're back with something to talk about. Brand new show. Still waiting for Vaughn. She's probably back in the dressing room, primping and getting ready to come into the show. But it's been a great week. For those, hope everybody that's watching and everything has gotten your shots. At least one of them so far, maybe both of them. Great that we're getting our shots and getting out of this pandemic thing. Pretty soon it'll be in our rearview mirror and we can all carry on and go back to whatever we knew as normal. I still question as to how fast it's going to be before people start shaking hands. Will they continue to fist bump or elbow bump or something? But the integration back into the mainstream might be a little bit slower than we thought. With sports venues opening up, I don't have a real problem with going to baseball games. That's going to be out open air, and I know that that some of the baseball stadiums may not have full capacity, but they're still going to do a little bit of social distancing. People can still have the option of wearing their masks if they want. Some of the indoor arenas, I mean, nobody ever thought we were going to be going through March Madness with the basketball playoffs and everything that were really restricted, but you got to do whatever is best going forward. But Vaughn and I were going to be talking this morning, and again, as I say, she'll probably drop in as soon as she gets in. But we were talking a little bit about businesses and how businesses were affected during the pandemic, some better than others. And what was interesting is as we both started researching it a little bit. Oh, there she is.
Hello.
Just popped in. I know. I was just talking about starting to get into our conversation today, but I know before we start talking about businesses and everything, I guess there's a few things that are going on in the Loeck family that are kind of exciting this week. Mainly it has a little bit of something to do with some hoops.
Yep.
Maybe. We're talking about the Baylor Bears in the Final Four. Everything's on the line going forward. In another week, we're going to know who the NCAA basketball champions are. Their next game is going to be a barn stormer with Houston. Yeah. That is going to be one incredible game.
Yeah.
And all, but you got one graduate from Baylor and you got two that are there right now. They must be going nuts down in Waco.
Yeah, they are actually. I mean, we all watched the game, of course, but then my youngest, who's a freshman down there, she got to go over by the fountain. They had a big screen outside for all the kids, and they could all kind of sit around and watch the game. They watched both women's and men. We got to give some credit to the women's,
yep.
The Lady Bears. They are an amazing team, and they have played very well. Even last year and the year before, they continue to be very strong. They have such talent on that team, and it's the other team won fair and well. Anyway, the other team won, but we did lose Dee Richards, one of our key players, to a hamstring injury in the game. And then, it was neck and neck up until the very end. And I'm sure if you turned on your TV, you've heard about that very, very, very bad call. Yeah. And they've shown it from every angle. And they've had so many people speak. It kind of is for me, raises a topic that I think maybe we should discuss, one time on the show, which is referees, umpires, officials. Should they be, and if they are held accountable, how do you hold them accountable for such an instrumentally bad call? It completely affected who won and who lost.
Yeah, well, and sometimes
that was clearly a bad call.
Yeah, and also sometimes when they review it after the game is over, it's in the books, and when they go back and they review it and they say, you know what, it really was a bad call, but it's too late to overturn the game. That happens a lot in baseball.
And that's fair. I understand that. I guess what I'm saying is, after a game, should there be some kind of, I don't know, some kind of record of like the officials and how many errors they make in calling games, and how that should kind of impact their qualifications moving forward to
Right. Well, that's
officiate,
true.
Because it was seen from so many angles, and I understand the whole being in the moment and having to call a shot and it's quick or whatever. But, and I get that, but now that it had happened, we have to be able to trust that these officials have the eye that is needed to catch those split-second throws and fouls and whatnot. And again, if this was first time she had made this error, I get it. But perhaps we keep a tally sheet of errors that refs, officials, umpires make before we ask them to officiate another game or whatever. I'm just saying.
And there is an umpires association and all, and they have to be reviewing too and say, you know what, this was clearly a bad call, and so that referee is going to be removed from that level of play. Maybe send them to a college level or something instead of at the professional level, or and you're right. Everybody has to be held accountable.
Yes, and I mean, it doesn't change the outcome of the game. Of course, is interjecting here. All professional officials are graded, so that's a good thing. But still, the outcome of that game probably shouldn't have ended the way it did. But anyway, It is what it is.
And also, we've gotten to the point now where they review all kinds of shots. They'll stop a game and they'll go and they'll review. And I don't understand, in many of these cases, like they do in football very often, they will go and review a catch. Was his foot on the line or off the line? They'll look at it from every angle, and then they will come back and they will rule it stands or it's overturned. And in cases like this, I don't understand why it was something that could not have been seen and the call either held or reversed before the end of the game, not after the game. And everybody says, "Oh, wait a minute, we just looked at that video and it clearly was a wrong call."
I don't know. I don't know. I think they knew right then and there. The way I understand it is there wasn't enough time. I don't know, but I guess, I agree with you. Why couldn't they have stopped right then and there and kind of reviewed it? But they didn't. It was very disappointing. It was not the outcome that we had hoped because, and I know somebody has to win and somebody has to lose, but the Lady Bears really such a strong team, played, I believe, the better game. We lost Dee Dee, which that happens, I get. Then this bad call with 19 seconds left on the clock. It was unfortunate how it ended. But this is this is the life of sports. And so I get that. So now we root on the men's Baylor Bears, and yes, they are going into the Final Four. And we'll be watching and rooting and cheering them on.
It's good. Yeah.
The whole Loic household.
And, you talked about your daughters being down at school and watching it in Waco on a big screen and all. My sister is in Indianapolis, and she is working at Lucas Oil Stadium. And she is there. She has been there for the March Madness. She has watched all of these games because she's an usher, and she's beside herself.
Yeah, definitely. How fun for her.
So that, being in the right place at the right time, talk about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, anyway, so go Bears. Sick 'em.
Yep. Go Bears. We'll be watching very intently.
Okay, good. Text me during the game.
Right. and fortunately, the game doesn't interfere with our show, because otherwise nobody would be watching us.
Right.
For sure.
Exactly.
But I threw the bone out there at the beginning of the show and told everybody while we were waiting for you to jump in that we got into a little conversation earlier about businesses that managed to fare the pandemic. And I know you love to research stuff, and I did it too. And I was absolutely totally amazed at how many major corporations and large businesses with multiple locations either started closing doors on a lot of their businesses, or just closed up completely. And it was the little guy who sat down and thought about how can I attack this inconvenience of the pandemic. And it's amazing the percentage of small businesses with one or maybe two or three locations maximum fared fairly well, and the major corporations just got blown out of the water.
Yeah, I think, and we had Melissa Waite on a couple months ago to talk about her small business.
Right.
She's the owner of Paper Fair here in Frisco, and she shared with us a little bit about what she did to try to keep their heads above water at all her locations. She's got 3 stores here in the Frisco, Dallas, Plano area.
Right.
But so yeah, I think talking about the small business owners, I think that they had more flexibility in terms of how they modified their business plan as it would then relate to circumstances surrounding the pandemic. The larger corporations are very much mandated. For example, in Frisco, I went into after Governor Abbott said that you didn't have to wear masks. You could wear masks, but he's leaving it up to each individual business and each individual to choose whether or not you want to wear the mask. He didn't say don't wear the mask. He just said, so I am choosing to wear my mask still because I feel like it just makes people around me feel more comfortable. I don't mind wearing it. I've gotten used to it now. But I was at Market Street, and one of the employees there said that while some of their employees, managers included, felt comfortable not wearing their masks and felt comfortable not mandating that customers wear their masks, still it was a corporate mandate. So all across the country, even if you're in Texas with Abbott as your governor, still that's what he gave, is these individual corporations and businesses and industries the choice, in our area anyway, to make their own, to decide whether or not they want to wear a mask. But so even if you're a small business owner versus corporate, even if you're corporate, you can be considered a small business here in our area because our Market Street has become, to me, like a small business because it's here in Frisco, and everybody in there, and all the employees. But it is corporate run, and you need to remember that, and it's obvious here with their mask mandate. But Stuart, I was thinking too, not just the small businesses, but I was thinking also just large industries and corporations and organizations that thrived and really blew it out of the water during the pandemic, mainly because of just the concept of their industry or the products that they serve or sell, or the service that they provide, or and so when you really look back on the past year and you kind of start to gather the companies that are doing, in some cases, 50% better than they did before 2020, it kind of makes you wonder why. But then when I started looking at these companies, it was really quite obvious, just based on just the circumstances surrounding the pandemic. It was no wonder that, cleaning services were doing very well. Delivery services of all kinds were doing very well. Grocery stores, liquor stores. I mean, the list goes on and on. Fitness equipment companies, used car companies, because people were staying away from public transportation. Healthcare workers, of course, telehealth, tutors online. I mean, when you look at some of these industries and businesses that really survived and thrived, it's no surprise based on the concept of their business. So I just thought it was, kind of obvious when I started to just kind of look at, just kind of gather some of the businesses that did very well.
Yeah, and again, I think a lot of it is, as I said, I was a mama papa operation my whole career. We had as many as 5 stores at one time, but finally got down to that one store, and it very much was mama papa operation. What I saw was, 6 months ago, there were predictions that anywhere from 25 to 50% of all hospitality type businesses were going to be gone. They were just going to shut their doors. Well, and that happened. A lot of franchises didn't make it because they couldn't afford their rents. They couldn't afford their help. They couldn't afford to keep up their agreements with their franchises. But the independents, they reinvented the wheel, if you will. A good example is our good friend Mike Luther over at Up Inspired Kitchen. As soon as the mandate started coming down saying that restaurants had to close, Mike said, I may have to close my doors to people coming in and sitting down and dining in the restaurant, but I'm going to keep cooking. I'm going to keep my cooks behind the grill, and I'm going to keep my help here packaging up food, and we're either going to deliver it or we're going to bring it out to your car for your pickup. He modified his menu a little bit. He added items. He subtracted items. He modified his hours a little bit. Those are the things that anybody has to do when their business is in any kind of peril. It doesn't necessarily have to be a pandemic, but when you're faced with an issue like that, granted, probably one of the biggest areas that that came into play was landlords. There were some landlords that just said, no, you got a contract. You owe me this amount every month, and I don't care if you have to close your doors. You still got to pay your rent. There were other landlords that said, look, we'll modify your rent, or we'll suspend your rent for the next few months. And when you get up and running again, you start paying rent, and then little by little, maybe pay back some of the back rent. The independent can sit down with their landlord. The independent can sit down with their employees and work out a new program. The corporations just didn't move that fast. And because of that, probably the biggest area were the clothing businesses and accessory businesses. We lost Payless Footwear. You lost the Gap and the Baby Gap, and you lost Men's Warehouse, Joseph A. Bank. These corporations just said we can't do it if people aren't walking in the door. We got all this inventory. We can't sell it. Yeah.
Steinhardt. I mean, just a lot of those places over there. Tuesday morning, a lot of those bigger places, people, you have to consider the clientele and just the fact that people were not wanting to get out. I mean, just a lot of those, now, but on the flip side, then you have places like Nordstrom's that really push the curbside service, and they just tried to make accommodations for their shoppers to shop however they feel most comfortable, by phone, online, curbside. And so they really had to think outside the box. But I think, to your point, like the smaller businesses, they can kind of get a little bit more creative. The smaller independent ones, they've got maybe a smaller staff, and they don't have to work through as much red tape and get as much approval from the higher ups, the powers that be, the board of directors, whatnot. It doesn't have to be a decision that works across the board in every retail, outlet across the country. It's their store, their concept, their community. They know who their shoppers are, their customers. So they have a little bit more, I think, flexibility in terms of being creative in how they, design a new business plan to accommodate, the new needs under the umbrella of the pandemic.
Yeah, and the independent merchant did have one major advantage, and that was they could stay in touch with their customers. Mm-hmm. They had customer lists. They had customer emails. They could send out notices. They could have their help get on the phone and call. Mrs. Jackson, I know it's been tough but I just wondered, is there anything that you may need from the store? Because we'll be happy to drop it off. Go on to our website, and if you see something you need, we'll take care of it, and we'll bring it over and drop it off at your house. those were the things that the independent could do. They knew their customer base, whereas the biggies, they don't know. They just have to rely on foot traffic. The more people that walk through the door and ring the register, the better their bottom line. And that's what I think hurt a lot of the big retailers. The other thing was, whatever you could buy inside any of those shops, big shops or small shops, you could go online and you could now buy it on the internet. And all of a sudden, Amazon Prime went through the stratosphere because of shipping, and now they could get it to you within a matter of days. If you tried it on, it didn't fit, put it back in a box and ship it back.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I think that some of these new business plans that have been developed, business strategies, whatever, whether it's a corporate business or an independent, obviously a lot of the changes that they made, while they obviously worked very well during, during quarantine and all that. I mean, we're still experiencing a pandemic, but on a different level now. But I think they worked so well that a lot of these places are continuing to keep these new practices in place because some of these businesses, for example, you referenced Up Inspired. There's another local restaurant here in town, Gallinero, and he actually did better on their curbside pickup than they would do on a normal Friday, Saturday night. Like 70, I think I want to remember at one time he said it was like 70% of their business. And they didn't have a lot of that curbside pickup before all of this because most people just, went to the restaurant, ate inside. They didn't, of course there was some pickup, but it really exploded, obviously. So this is something they have still, even though they've got more people coming into the restaurants back up to 100% and all that, they that works very well for them, and they're going to.
Yeah, you were breaking up there just a little bit, but no, you're right. And now you've got a lot of pluses. Number one, some of the restrictions are being relaxed. There are restaurants I'm noticing that aren't necessarily going back to having the maximum number of tables that they've had. They're still recognizing a little bit of social distancing. Of course, the restaurants that have outdoor seating, you're finding that those tables are almost full all the time because people feel more comfortable dining outdoors in an open air setting than indoors. You're also getting better weather, and weather is a big factor in getting people to go to those restaurants, indoor or outdoor dining. So, that's why I say we've kind of turned the corner and things are getting better. And little by little, I mean, I agree with you. When I go into stores and I see that some of the staff or other shoppers in the store are not wearing masks, it used to really bother me until I got the shots. But now I choose to keep covered just because I still want to protect myself. Before, there was a little bit of me that said, I'm going to also wear that mask because I want to protect the other people around me. But now it's all about me, and people have to do that. If you still are uncomfortable, you don't even have to shop in that store if their help doesn't wear a mask and you're uncomfortable. Go to one of the places where they still are asking people to wear a mask, at least when they come in the store. But I feel more comfortable wearing a mask now because I have had my inoculations and I can shop and feel more comfortable about it. The travel industry is starting to open up in that regard also, that they are still requiring people to mask up on the airplanes and on some of the transportation. But little by little, that'll start being relaxed too.
And you know what? There'll probably be people who never stop wearing a mask, and that's fine too. I don't take offense either way. Wear a mask or don't wear a mask. I mean, in the beginning, when it was mandated, wear the mask. But now if it's a choice, if the business that I'm frequenting at the time requires a mask, I'm going to wear the mask. If it doesn't, in fact, I was at a place a over the weekend, it was outdoors. It was a nursery, a local nursery here. And a lot of people still had their masks on outdoors. I don't feel as great a need to wear my mask outdoors. And my sales associate was not wearing a mask. And it was a warm day and we were out. And so I did take my mask off. I kept my distance. I wasn't like 10 feet from the guy, but I wasn't all up in his face either. But I was out. And so there are times, and I was at another store and I was the only person on the aisle. And I was trying to read ingredients and my glasses were fogging up because of my mask. It just, this lift of the mandate just allowed me to feel more comfortable pulling my mask down. I was not with anybody. I could take my glasses. I had my mask down. I was doing my thing. And then I just put it back up. So I think it's kind of a good way to ease back into a life without masks, should you so choose. Again, there will be people who will forevermore wear a mask. I guarantee you that.
That brings up a point, because the Japanese culture, they've been wearing masks for years and years and years, and it's not because of a pandemic; it's because of pollution, and it has been that way. I always wonder why this wearing of masks didn't start a lot earlier, like around Los Angeles, which is notorious for having smog and bad air quality. But even when we started wearing masks, everybody was so self-conscious about wearing the masks. And today, I mean, you got designer masks out there now. People are creating their own masks. Everybody's in the mask business.
Every college campus has their own mask. Every sport, sports organization has their own, But that's another industry, by the way, that I obviously did very well during the pandemic, is businesses that made these masks or whatever. But I have to say, I did find it interesting, and we were talking a little bit about how smaller businesses had to be a little more creative, I guess, in terms of how they restructured their business plan to accommodate the new needs in the midst of a pandemic. But also, it was easier for them because they're smaller, they had more flexibility in doing that. Some of the larger organizations or businesses or industries that did very well and are continuing to do very well, it was based not so much on having to redesign their business or product in any way or service. It was simply because during that time, their business, their product, their service, whatever, became a great need. And grocery stores, not only did we rush to the store and buy food, frozen products in particular, a lot of frozen food, but cleaning supplies, and of course, the toilet paper and the paper towels. And I mean, grocery stores were really hit hard, but came out of this really, ahead of the game. Liquor stores. I found this interesting. Not only were people, having maybe a drink or two during these times to get through, but also they were helping make hand sanitizer. So, some of these businesses just did so well just because of the need. Some of those sanitizers smell like tequila.
I think a lot of people went to the liquor store and they bought liquor and wine and everything because they couldn't get Purell at the grocery store to sanitize themselves from the outside, so you could sanitize yourself from the inside out.
Right. Exactly. Or at least just numb all the thoughts. I don't know. But I actually contributed to the success of this industry, the fitness equipment industry. During those times, you couldn't even, the beginning of quarantine, you couldn't even find hand weights. I mean, they were just sold out everywhere, even Amazon.
Well, because people couldn't get out to their clubs. The clubs were either closed or limiting. And also, you're right. The sales of stationary bikes and treadmills and all that just skyrocketed. Also, videos, workout
the gaming
videos.
industry. Yep. But
So,
but before you move on to that, with the equipment, with the fitness equipment, also online fitness instruction became a big hit.
that's right.
And even still is today. Many people have chosen just not to go back to the gym because they found what they needed online. You pop up your computer. If you have a Peloton at home or any kind of bike, you can find yourself an instructor to walk you through that exercise. And you've got now your handheld equipment at home or whatever equipment you have. Go online. You can Google any exercise with a step, with a bike, running. So a lot of the online fitness videos, I guess, and I guess they get their money from advertising because a lot of them are free for the customer anyway.
Yeah.
But gaming too. Definitely gaming too, for sure.
Yeah. So, if there's probably one segment, I think, of the food industry that probably fared fairly well, that was the pizza places, because most pizza places were carry out anyway. So now they were either delivering or it was pick up. And now what was the difference whether you went in to get your pizza or you pulled up and you called them and you said, yeah, I'm here and I already put it on my credit card. They bring it out to the car. So the pizza industry and some other fast food industries like that really did well. The drive-throughs, a lot of the restaurants and everything that had drive-through capabilities, they weren't allowing people inside the restaurant, but man, those drive-throughs were a half a mile long. People were waiting to pick up their food that way too. And then that also, look, a year and a half ago, how many grocery stores had curbside pickup? They all started with that too, where today, when I even go to the grocery store on my own, there's probably 20 employees that are going through the store with carts filling orders for curbside pickup. And I still choose to do my own shopping, but so many people are going online and ordering their food online too.
It's nice to have the options, and that's what coming out of this. We have more. There might be people, regardless of a pandemic, they, for whatever reason, can't get out and do the shopping. So this has just really made everybody aware of your options in terms of, how you shop. And not only curbside, but there are a lot of delivery services now that have really picked up. Uber Eats and, I don't know, Blue Apron, and I can't even name them all. There's so many delivery services. You don't even have to get in the car and go to the curb. They'll just come to you. And so
did you have any of those little robots in your neighborhood? Those little delivery bots?
No, I don't think so.
Around where I am, the donut, I don't know who the company was, but they had they're small little remote control like robots. And they would go to like the donut shop. You could call the donut shop and order a dozen donuts. They would put it in one of these robots, program your address, and they would just turn this thing loose. It would go up to a 4-way light. It would wait until the light turned green and it would go across the street. I mean, it was like something out of the future. Come down the sidewalk and all of a sudden it would come up in front of your house and it would call you and let you know that your delivery was out front.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, I don't know whether the pandemic started to ease up, but I don't even see those robots anymore in the neighborhood.
I never have seen those robots.
They were strange.
Are you sure that you really did see the robots?
I think so. Maybe I had too much at the liquor store.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I mean, I'm not going to say we didn't have. We did have like a snow cone truck that would come through occasionally for the kids. We had a local Mexican restaurant that would come and deliver food on designated days. You could place an order and they would come in, you could pick it up. And, businesses, again, were just doing what they could to be creative and stay in front of the customer best they could during these times when the customer couldn't get to them.
Yeah. And again, trying to look 6 months or a year into the future, how many of those businesses are going to say these modifications that we did when we had to are working and let's continue to do those? because they continue to work. I felt sorry for a lot of the grocery stores because, a lot of the food, in the stores have expiration dates. They're perishables. Good Lord, the produce department. I mean, I can only guess how many pounds of produce had to be tossed because there weren't people coming in the door to buy lettuce and tomatoes and apples and oranges and all that, and just had to be thrown out. And when that happens, that hurts your profitability. Some stores, I noticed that there were a little less. You didn't see 100 pounds of bananas in the store anymore. It was maybe 20 or 30 pounds because they would come in on a regular basis. So there wasn't as much to choose from. And sometimes certain items would sell out. But everybody had to, the customer had to adjust their buying, abilities, and the stores had to alter their providing abilities to their customers.
Yeah, there's an interesting quote that I just really stumbled upon by Charles Darwin, and he said, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one most adaptable to change." Charles Darwin.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very appropriate.
And he probably said that centuries ago.
Probably said it centuries ago. Yep.
Yeah. And it's still as valid today as it was centuries ago when he said it.
Absolutely. And, we're talking about businesses and industries that survived and in some cases thrived during the pandemic. But if you think about all the individuals who were affected by this, well, everyone, and you think of circumstances that really just go across the board. We're talking in schools, in churches, in nonprofit organizations, in the arts district. All of them had to make accommodations and try to keep their goals, try to continue to maintain their goals. My daughter, Emily, is a senior at Baylor, like you mentioned earlier, and she was recruitment chair for her sorority this year. And she also was challenging job recruiting virtually. And normally these girls just have their big parties and everybody goes through.
Right.
Pardon me, you get to meet everybody in person, and it's done the traditional way. They had to completely, from ground up, build a new recruitment program that accommodated everybody and kept everybody apart, social distance, not even social distance, but apart. We're talking virtually. And they actually did it very well. I won't go into all the details, but they were very creative in how they designed their new recruitment process, thought outside the box, had a very successful recruitment. And I just think while it's not something she would have chosen, she probably would have loved to have had just the traditional where the girls could come through and all that. Still, I think maybe years later, she'll realize how that impacted her character and just kind of prepared her for future maybe situations where she's going to have to do the same thing and make a change or rethink the norm and think outside the box and be creative. And so I thought it was a good exercise for her to go through.
Yeah, well, I mean, if nothing else, it was a good ability for her to see what adaptability was all about, is to realize that with that good old Yankee ingenuity, you sit down, you think it out and say, we can't do it traditionally. So do we just say, to heck with it, we're just not going to do it this year. We'll skip a year. No, right. You sit down, you look at all the options, you discuss it, and you come up with a plan that is a viable alternative to the norm. And that's what we all have done for the last year and a half. We Absolutely. Have had to come up with alternate plans in order to keep ourselves going.
Absolutely. And my dad is, of course, chiming in again with an excellent point, I think. He says companies of all kinds reshape their businesses beyond what they even thought possible.
That's right.
Zoom was a salvation for many. And Zoom, whether you were in it doesn't matter, Girl Scout troop, a multi-million-dollar corporation, a small independent business, a church, a baby shower, a wedding, I mean, Zoom should have bought stock in Zoom before all this.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned churches. The religious organizations and everything, they all adapted themselves. Many of them streamed their services. Many of them used Zoom. And that's another area where a lot of them that are coming out of the pandemic and are opening their doors and welcoming their congregations to come and worship in person, they are continuing to stream via Facebook and all, for those that are saying, I'm not ready yet, but I want to participate. And so we've all learned a lot from this, and it was not an exercise we all wanted to go through and all, but we all learned that sometimes less is more. And you can reinvent yourself, repurpose what your game plan is. And going forward,
you were talking about the live streaming church. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I asked her if she was going back to church yet in person, and she said no. And it's not because I don't feel comfortable. She said, I've gotten both my vaccination shots. I'm fine. She said, the problem, Vaughn, is that I've become very comfortable sitting on my couch in my pajamas with my cup of coffee. And I think that's actually going to be an issue with a lot of people, is we've become a little bit, while we're still maintaining productivity, I am anyway, and I think a lot of people are, still there are those tendencies to continue on. If you have been comfortable on a Sunday morning with your husband having coffee, watching church on TV, you might continue doing that for a while. I said to her, you got to get back. It's the fellowship. But anyway, but I'm just saying, people have kind of fallen into new habits.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. In fact, one of those habits is I have gotten so used to sitting down every evening. Lauren and I sit down and we watch a movie or something on Netflix and Prime, and some of them are recently released movies and all. And we keep looking at each other saying, are we ever going to go back to the theater? To go back to the theater, pay the prices. I mean, $5 for a box of popcorn and a drink. You can sit in the comfort of your own home. There are so many movie streaming services now that you can watch everything almost when it's released in the movies. You can now pay that fee or less and watch it at home and sit and have a meal.
An industry that did not fare well, the movie theaters.
Yeah. In fact, some
Hollywood
of them have not reopened.
Yeah, I think Hollywood as a whole, and I feel it's awful. Like Broadway, the movies, Hollywood. I mean, actors in general. I mean, we used to watch.
What was that? But I mean, live theater. I'm on the board of Theater Frisco, and we're now talking about we're going to resume with live plays probably with our in October of this year. But live performances, both musical performances, concerts, live theater, and all have all been put on hold, and it's everybody's itching to get back to it too, and I hope we'll see it soon. So,
yep, me too.
Well,
glad you've gotten your vaccinations. How did you do? After you got your second shot?
Actually, I had a little harder time with the second shot than the first one. I had joint pain for probably a couple of weeks.
My gosh, really?
Yeah, but it's gone now, and it's been, I think almost 3 weeks since I had that final shot.
Did you have
and
Moderna
now
or
I'm really,
Pfizer?
I had Pfizer. And I'm thrilled to see now that they're accelerating the number of people. They're dropping the age groups that can get inoculated now. They're getting more and more people are able to get their shots and get them at an early age. They're even starting to get down into the college and middle school and even grade schools, starting to open programs up so everybody can be inoculated. So, as I say, that's the upside of what we've gone through for this last year and a half. But hopefully it's all behind us, and businesses will start to thrive again. All the industries will, and the best of luck to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Stay safe, stay healthy.
That's right. And that'll probably do it again for another edition of Something to Talk About. We'll get on put the thinking caps on again and start working on what we're going to talk about next week. But hopefully you'll go out there and make it a good rest of your week and the weekend. And we'll catch you right here again next week for another edition of Something to Talk About. And in the meantime, go Bears.
Go Bears. That's right. Sick 'em. Bye, guys.
All right, we gone, Mark?